Hello everybody, my name is Priestess Mareesha and I welcome you to the Doula Rebel channel. So of course I am a doula and I am a priestess and I love to read cards. So thank you for joining me today. And so I wanted to start a new series, and this is something that my ancestors have placed on my heart to do because one, I love to read cards, but then I'm also nosy and I like to talk about things that are currently happening in the world. When it comes to social issues, when it comes to political issues, even in things in music and entertainment. And I've often realized that our ancestors have a lot more to say regarding these things than we often realize. And so why not put together two things that I love, and that is talk my shit, but then also read cards, and then just bring it all together. So what do the ancestors have to say? They're speaking, and so we need to, learn how to listen up and take guidance into how they want us to move forward. And so one of the topics that I wanted to start off with that has been on my heart and really kind of been getting a lot of downloads on is really speaking about the homophobia that happens in hip hop as well as in the Black community overall. And during meditation, of course, before I do this reading, I asked my ancestors as to, why should I focus on this topic, especially as it be one of the first topics that hit this channel. And really, they told me it's because it's a topic that has plagued our community for a very long time. And a lot of how we have handled it has been out of ego and out of the 3D. And it has not been dealt with in terms of being in higher vibrations and what it means to love our brother unconditionally. And so I think that it will behoove us to kind of go to our ancestors for how do they feel about Black people within the community, and a lot of the tension that goes beyond, those who identify as heterosexual or cisgender, and those who may identify with the LGBTQIA plus community, and even the trans community as well. So I wanted to do this reading using playing cards. So therefore it's going to be a cartomacy reading. And so I'm going to go ahead and start throwing some cards and see what messages that I'm able to get from the Ancestral Collective. And I also want to give a reminder that, of course, this is for entertainment and as well as educational purposes only, because I don't just want y'all to watch this just for play. Like, I do want you all to feel like you're getting something out of watching this video. And that also, whatever the ancestors say, I'm going to say it. So if my intuition picks it up, that's what's going to be said. So if you feel a certain type of way about what is coming through, pray to your own people about it. Or you can make a video with yourself. All right. So here we go. All right. So to the Ancestral Collective, what do our ancestors have to say about the current tensions around the homophobia that happens in not only hip hop but in the greater Black community at large? What do you all feel are the underlying issues? And what are some things that we need to pay attention to, or how can we even, move forward from this? How are we able to bridge the gap? How are we able to bridge the gap? All right, overall energy is the 7 of Hearts. All right. All right. Whew. Okay, so the first cards that I pulled the Joker card. And so the Joker card is usually like an amplifier, something that you can definitely put more energy to and take a chance with. And so the next card that I pulled that was on top of that was the Five of Clubs. That, of course, was followed by the Nine of Spades. Let me show the cards. So, of course, you got the Five of Clubs. You have the Nine of Spades. You have the Seven of Clubs, you have the Four of Spades, and then you also have the Six of Clubs. All right. So with this being the overall energy of the Seven of Hearts, I definitely see this as a spiritual challenge for our community, especially if this is something that we feel like we want to eradicate, as well as be able to deal with head on. With the first pull of this being a Five of Clubs, I feel as though the ancestors are saying that there needs to be a massive shift in how we think, and the ideals that we have allowed ourselves to be conditioned in, that keeps us from being able to bridge that gap. At the end of the day, we have to recognize that homophobia is set in on the conditioning to believe that these people are wrong. That is set into the ideology that they don't deserve, or they're not supposed to have these types of attractions or live this particular lifestyle. So as long as that conditioning is there, and as long as we lead our lives with the certain ideologies that help allow homophobia to continue to nest in our homes, in our community, in the greater society, then there will never be much change that will come, or much bridging the gap, or people to truly understand or have the empathy or the awareness or the open-mindedness that there isn't one binary way of living. And this even truly even goes back into the conditioning that we feel that as Black people we received when we came over here as enslaved, as our ancestors were enslaved. Most of what we believe in now comes from the conditioning that happened back then. We didn't necessarily carry the homophobic views that we had. And these are the messages that's coming through. A lot of the homophobic ideologies that Black people carry now were not always with us. And as Black people, if we're truly going to embrace ourselves, in this pro-Blackness, being that of Black people and wanting to bring the culture back, then it also means that we need to stop subscribing to certain white ideologies, white Christian ideologies. And if I just have to be completely transparent, because I do have ancestors that were identified as Christians as well. However, they're also going to be able to keep me, keep it real. It's difficult, and in some ways it's straddling the fence if you want to say that you are pro-Black, but yet still subscribe to certain white Christian ideologies that will allow that certain type of division amongst your own people. And with the Nine of Spades being the next card, I see this as a cycle that needs to end. There needs to be a real cleanse of how we've allowed homophobia, transphobia, toxic masculinity, even some toxic femininity, to plague our community in a way that it separates us from being able to reach our fullest potential. So it's almost like, if we want to see a moving forward, our actions have to change. We have to act as if we want these things to remove ourselves from being a detriment to why we as a community can't move past it. And this goes beyond homophobia. This is even how we are in the home. A change of action, a change of mindset. Knowing that we can't keep repeating the same thing and thinking that we're going to get the same result, because what is that? That's the definition of insanity. And so we have to get out of the cycle of insanity, of thinking that we can continue to progress as a people, but yet still hold on to the very things that were holding us back. That it just gives us a sign that we're not ready to move forward. And it will keep us in that matrix. It will keep us in the 3D. It will continue to plague us and cause these tensions, and cause, certain black people or black people that's within that particular community to not feel safe in the community that they should feel the safest in. And that's a problem. That's an issue for our ancestors. And it's also an issue for the ancestors who are part of the LGBTQIA plus community, because a lot of us forget that it was them who really helped lead the charge for the mainstream civil rights movement that we have now. So what does that mean when we see that they've been able to do all this hard work, but yet if they were to be alive today, they'll still get that same type of pushback from their own people, simply because they still subscribe to the same ideologies that we thought we wanted to get away from. So, there has to be a cycle that needs to end, where it's like we have to stop picking and choosing what we want to believe in. We have to stop picking and choosing where we see the convenience. We can't be pro-black for show. We can't be pro-African for show. We can't say that, we want to do away with all this conditioning and that, but then when it comes to things that you don't understand, or, you haven't been quite comfortable with, you're willing to bring back that outdated ideology, the ideology that we were conditioned and we were forced to implement into our lives, into wanting to, try to validate how you feel. So there is a lot of that. And for the for the 7 of clubs, I see this as being able to let go of certain negative attachments. And this goes back into the ideologies of overcoming negative ways of thinking that we have about the community, and also negative ways that we think about each other. And it's funny that I'm hearing this. Stop thinking that every gay man wants you. Just because they're gay doesn't mean that they're actually attracted to you. Same goes for women too. Just because a woman may be a lesbian does not mean that she's actually attracted to you. You have to come with more than just what's in between your legs for everybody. Not just if you just identify as heterosexual. And I'm also getting another thing, and it's also about black men and bisexuality. That's what also leads to a lot of black men not being open. And also leads to another black women being open either. Because even though there's a little bit more room for women to be bisexual, there's still an issue for a lot of that. And so this really ties into sexual freedom. There is a negative connotation that really comes with black people and being sexually free. And we're not saying like sexually free in terms of being promiscuous or sexually free, you know, in terms of I can be able to have sex with who I want and all that. I mean sexually free in terms of I don't feel shame in knowing that I am, you know, attracted to, you know, someone, you know, consensually that other people may not necessarily be attracted to. And that I am okay with identifying with this without feeling like that there's something wrong with me. Now, I'm not talking about, you know, anything dealing with minors or that, because there is something wrong with you. But we're going in terms of if we're going to be speaking about mending the relationships that we have with members of the black community that are also gay, bisexual, lesbian, trans, asexual, intersex, you know, however, we have to let go of the stereotypes. We have to not only let go of the stereotypes that's around them, but we also have to let go of the stereotypes around how we view sex. We have to let go of the, you know, the stereotypes that we have around how, you know, gender identity. What does masculine look like? What does femininity look like? Because if we really want to be honest, masculine and feminine have no gender. It has no gender. Masculinity and femininity shows up in men and women in so many different ways. So if we keep subscribing to the same, and just like we mentioned earlier, that one binary way of how we look at things, we'll never get past a lot of this. And I think that once we do, or we make the effort to really have these type of conversations that most of us try, you know, to avoid, we will see the Four of Spades. And the Four of Spades talks about actions that create stability and that creates, you know, a certain foundation that allows you to build on, and that we can see new ground, and how we're able to even unify as a people. We have a lot of work to do around setting the stage for that, because I'm hearing we've been very conditioned. We've been very, very conditioned. And I think where we need to start at is admitting that we've been way more conditioned than we want to say that we are. Because we want to be oblivious, and we want to feel as though, you know, we can easily break away. You know, of course, you have Black Lives Matter and all that, where we, you know, it's a way of kind of going against the system, but in many ways we still subscribe to it. And we have to be able to move out of this mindset that unity is not supposed to happen simply because, you know, I was conditioned to believe that the way that you live is wrong. So therefore, you aren't my brother, and I'm not supposed to care about you, or I'm not supposed to protect you, and, you know, I'm not supposed to make room for you and all that, you know. And yeah, because you can have one black, two black men, and the straight black man has issues with police brutality and all that, and because we've normalized the image of seeing heterosexual black men being targeted by police. Is not to say that gay black men don't, but it's the image that has been normalized. It will be swamped with support. But when you see a gay black man being targeted, and it may have something to do with his sexuality or something like that, because we've been conditioned to believe that simply because of how he moves is wrong, his blackness doesn't have to play a factor in whether or not we support him. Because at the end, he doesn't fit into the normalized image that we have in our brain as the only type of black man that could ever be harmed by this system, or that could ever go through any type of systemic injustice. They have to be heterosexual. And so we have to be able to move past that. And lastly, of course, we have the 6 of clubs. And so that, of course, the number 6 represents karma. It represents, of course, peace. But it also represents psychic abilities and intuition. And what the ancestors are saying, that there's a heightened sense of awareness as a people, as a community, if we truly learn how to better work with those who don't necessarily subscribe with the same normalized way of living that we've been taught to live in this country. So it's almost like when we stop being divided in that sense, then we could actually see a lot more forward movement in the things that we truly want to see moved in this country. But not only that, but even in our community. We are too disorganized from the inside, and this plays a big part in the disorganization. It holds a lot of cracks in this, and I just feel like there's a strengthening that can come from as a people. So many gifted people can be supported and nurtured if we were to come together and see that if these folks were to come out and say that they were a part of this community, that they won't be shunned. There are a lot of leaders and a lot of people who could truly be on the forefront of Black rights in this country. But because of some of the conditioning that we still hold on to when it comes to homophobia, it's almost like they're stifling themselves because they already know that because they are this, they won't get any type of support to move things forward. So it's like we are handicapping our own potential leaders in the way. We say that we want leaders, we say that we want that, but then we want our leaders to look a certain way. We want our leaders to, fit within this little frame of work. We want our leaders to look that. So if they're not tall, dark, and handsome, and they don't have a Black woman by their side with 2 kids, we don't want them as a leader, and that is a problem. So that means that we are sacrificing our own forward movement and seeing things move forward because we want all of our civil rights leaders to look cisgender and heterosexual. So we keep putting that box on our leaders and how they're going to move forward, we're not going to see a lot of change in that as well. You see what I'm saying? And I wholeheartedly agree with this message. Because we really act as if that's sustained on our folks if they were to come out as being a part of the community. And the amount of people who will, have their opinions and have this and then don't want to vote because they're like, well, I'm not, I don't see myself getting married to no woman, or I'm a man, I ain't gonna marry no man, so why would I want to support somebody? What does that, why do they have to relate to you in that realm in order for them to even get your vote? Like, if this person's going to come in and do a good job, then that's them coming in and do a good job. What is them also having to be married to a man, or them also having to be married to a woman? What does that have to do with that? And so it's that type of ideology, it's that type of conditioning that really keeps us from being able to move forward on certain things. Because if they don't come with how we feel or how we've been conditioned to look like, then you're not going to give them any attention. And so we can't blame the white man for that. And the reason why we can't blame them for that is because we are literally sitting here subscribing to the very ideology that we claim we didn't want to be a part of. And so there's a lot of, with the clubs out here, with the amount of clubs in spades, there's definitely a change of mind and a change of how we move when it comes to how we're able to truly bring more harmony into the relationships that we have with each other. Not only with the LGBTQIA plus community, but just also as, as men and women, women and children, old and young. Like, there are a lot of ideologies, there are a lot of things that we still are conditioned to, that we still subscribe to, that controls how we move with people. And until we are able to bring more awareness and actually take the steps and intentional steps and move in that, then we're still going to be stuck in the same place. So to close this up, of course, because I don't want this video to be way too long, so what messages do the ancestors have in terms of like where we could start, moving forward? Overall message of of improving relations, all right. 2 cards. All right, so we got the 10 of clubs as over energy. 2 cards. All right. Oh wow. Oh wow. Okay, so so the card I pulled, of course, is the 6 of Hearts, and then we have the 4 of Clubs. With the 6 of Hearts, and it's funny because I'm hearing like emotional karma, which is really weird. And I'm saying, well, I guess what I see is that in the current state that we're in, at the end of the day, if we continue to see Black folks wanting to step out and say homophobic things and say things that, of course, could truly hurt those who are Black, but also part of the LGBTQIA plus community, like, in many ways, you kind of have to expect the backlash at this point. Like, Like, it's 2021. Y'all are not dumb. And I'm hearing that. Like, y'all are not dumb. You already know what's going to come when you make comments like this, when you do things like, you know, say things that could be harmful like that. So they don't really understand why we are acting this way, or the outrage behind why, you know, these folks can't just have their opinion, because that's not just an opinion. And that opinion comes from conditioning. It comes from narrow-mindedness. It comes from ignorance. So expect back what you put out there. So as long as this is the type of energy that you want to put in there, then don't be surprised if it gets met right back. And I'm really seeing this for the whole recent thing that happened with the baby and things like that. Like, you put certain energy out, then certain energy is going to be met back with you. And so there's a lesson that comes with that. So if you want to put out ignorance, don't get mad when ignorance get met right back. And then also with the 4 of Clubs, and this is why I, you know, definitely believe in the previous message. It can represent a slow movement forward. It can represent things can take time. Doesn't mean that things won't change, but we can't, you know, say that it's going to happen overnight. And that positive movement forward can happen. It can happen. But it takes us having to take the action. And with the 10 of Clubs being the overall energy, that's also can be the energy of the teacher. Unfortunately, education still has to happen. This kind of takes me back to when, you know, I was working in the community for a nonprofit, and we had to, of course, start doing like promotions, saying that we had like a new location because we had moved from like one end of the town to another end that better served the community that we were targeting at the time. And they were, of course, had doing like a rerouting for like a transit route for like the public transit station, and like they had been promoting the change of route for like a good 2-3 months. Like, you just saw like plaster, did whatever signs that. And then when the day of the change happened, people were like, what's going on? Like, why did you not tell me about the change? And they had been pushing it for so long. But the thing about it was that if this wasn't something that they felt like was important to them at the time, if they didn't feel like that, then you know, it's not going to be on the front of the mind in how that. And so I had to learn that in some ways, and as tiring as it is, in some cases you may have to continue to repeat yourself. It sucks. I ain't saying that, you know, it is your role job. Everything just ain't gonna come easy. And when it comes to this type of conditioning, it's going to come slow, and it is going to feel burdensome. But the education has to happen because the change has to start. And so we just have to hope that whoever chooses to really soak up this information and take it and they listen, that they're able to actually implement this, and then they're also able to educate those that maybe you who are on the front line aren't able to reach. So yeah, You know, it's a long time. It ain't gonna happen by next year. But there's, it's an investment that has to be made if you really want to see the community to change in this particular thing. All right. Whew. So that is the reading. I want to thank the Ancestral Collective for, just allowing me to speak through the cards. Wow. This is dope. This is kind of dope. I'm gonna do this again. I'm definitely going to do this again. And so this is episode 1 of course, the Ancestors Are Speaking series. Okay. And so of course we're able to start off, talking about how they feel about the homophobia that is in the Black community, or in hip hop as well. And then so next we're going to see what is, everything's going on with the schools and with the Delta variant. I kind of want to see what's going on with that. So if you like this video, definitely like, share, subscribe, and definitely if you can leave in the comments what are some current topics and things that are going on in the world that you want to hear from the ancestors about. Like, what do they have to say? Do they have any advice? Are there any concerns that you're interested in hearing about? And what advice do they have for us moving forward? So definitely leave that in the comments. And you can also follow me on TikTok and as well as Instagram at the Doula Rebel. Same for both. And I shall talk to you guys later. Bye.